Hey guys, and welcome to our review of DDLC. So, a little factoid. I think I mentioned this in the Path to Go episode a little bit ago, that this was pre-recorded alongside the Reckless Road episode, and both of which got corrupted on the same day. It's almost like it was a Monday. So we're redoing this. We're gonna try and stick to the same thing. I still have the same opinion, so it's not like that's gonna change. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. But we're gonna go over the game company / creator. And that's Dan Salvato. He's an awesome dude. I've seen him in he's been talking about different stuff and all that cool thing. And of course he made the game. I mean, there's other people that helped him too, but he's the main showrunner, I guess, so to speak. And he did an excellent job. So I don't know if I still never found out if DDLC Plus was considered like a company that made it, or if it was still like an indie game studio that made it. I'm willing to bet it was an indie game studio because I think the credits were still relatively small. So yeah, that's who the game company / creator is. But moving on to what is done well. I personally think that the story is really done well, and that we're gonna go over the story and the characters and stuff more so later, like more in depth anyway. But the story, the characters, the music, everything that came together to form the game was really well done. I think the way that they kind of lead you into a false sense of security was also really well done, where like the first hour of the game, like first hour of like the gameplay is all this cute. It's like all this cutesy stuff. You're trying to win over the whammon, and all that stuff, and it's like it's perceiving itself as a dating sim. In reality, it's a terrifying, horrible kind of concoction of different things. So yeah, I think the way they kind of lead you into that, and like same thing with when you go to the Steam page. So when you first were downloading the game, you'd be like, oh, it's a dating sim, great, I get to be a weeb, yay! And then you read one of the tags and it says psychological horror, and you're like, wait a minute, what's that about? And then as soon as you open the game, you're greeted with like at least 2 warnings that say, hey, this game is not suitable for most people. Don't play this game if you suffer from these things. It's like, wait a minute. What am I getting myself into? So you have this sort of uneasy feeling as soon as you start. And then the facade starts to reassure you that, oh, no, this is just a dating sim. We're just kidding, maybe. And then as soon as like certain events happen, it takes a super decline. Not in quality or anything, but like super decline, like downhill in terms of like the facade, I should say.
Derails.
No. So yeah, I think that's really done well. It's like basically everything that came together was really done well. And like I said, we're gonna go more into story and the characters and all that stuff later. But I think that the fact that the way everything came together was really well done, and I think that Dan and the team did a really good job on that. So moving on to what can be improved. I forgot to mention this earlier, but we're lumping DDLC Plus into it because it's technically the same game, just it had a bit of extra stuff in it, and it was ported to consoles. That's really what DDLC Plus was. It was here's some extra side stories for the people that liked the game, and then it's a console thing too, because it used to be just PC. So we're lumping those together, and because we're doing that, I'm gonna say that the core DDLC game, I don't think I would have changed much with it. So like what could be improved, I don't know if I would have improved anything with that. The music was phenomenal, the characters were phenomenal. Monica has like, and when you're in Monica's room, like in Act 3 of basically the end of the game, she has like so many different dialogue options, like it's crazy. You could sit there for like hours on end just listening to her talk. And so that's pretty interesting. I think you can delete her at any time you choose once she's done with her main monologue. And so that's pretty interesting. But with DDLC Plus, I honestly wanted a bit more out of it. The side stories were cool and all, but they were really short. I was honestly expecting them to be like, sort of like, I didn't expect them to be as long as the actual game, but I was like hoping they'd be like an hour or two, you know, maybe something like that. But they were like 30 or so minutes. And that also depends on how fast you read. If you're a fast reader and like you're not making a YouTube video, you could probably get through that in less time. So yeah, I just wish there was more of that. The lore though was good. The lore, they added more lore to the DDLC Plus than there was in the main game, so that was pretty cool. But just in terms of the actual story, the visual story itself, I wish there was more of it. That was one of the things that would have improved. Yeah, so that's really all I have to say about that. I think because even when we did the original video, that's all I said about the improved section. So we're gonna move on to any problems or glitches. Any problems or glitches, well, any glitches rather, so to speak, are intentional on the part of the game. So if you're playing Act 2 of the game and you see Natsuki like has inverted colors for a couple frames, that's intentional. or how like Yuri starts, like this camera starts zooming in on Yuri at certain parts. That's all like intentional game design. So as far as I'm aware, when the game came out, there wasn't any. Maybe there might have been like a bug where it would skip the text sometimes. I feel like I remember hearing that. But other than that, there was like dance about it. I mean, it's a visual novel. Like, what bugs would there be? So yeah. So there really isn't any bugs. But the glitches they're intentional. So. But moving on to controls. The main DDLC game used to be on computer, so it's just click a button with your mouse. That was really it. Because clicking, you could just click anywhere and it would take you back. It would progress the story. It could make you skip the text, whatever. That was all tied to one button. But once it came to consoles, though, you had like the A button, which was like selecting. You had the B button to go back. You had really obviously you had the stick to control like your movement, but that was really it. There wasn't really too much to it. As far as I'm aware, that was all. Unless I'm forgetting if the triggers did anything or something like that. But it's a very simplistic game, and I bet if you got DDLC Plus on a computer, it'd be the exact same. I bet it would just be like you click a button. Yeah, not much in terms of controls, but again, it's a visual novel, so you don't really need to worry about controls too much. So they're pretty easy to get by. Moving on to graphics. The graphics are it's your typical, visual novel style. I think they are hand drawn. So like they're hand drawn, but I think they had like a machine help them. Like it was like they went into a software to code them in or something. I don't know the full extensive process of how they did it, but to me it's like it looks like a book. That's kind of what it's meant to be. It's not meant to look 3D, or it's not meant to look like Minecraft or anything. Yeah, the graphics are your typical style, so there's no problem with the graphics. There's it's really like it has a very cute art style, and obviously the backgrounds are cool. The backgrounds are all custom. So like the school, the neighborhood thing, that's all really cool. Honestly, I just wish there was more. Honestly, I guess that's another thing I could put in improved. I wish there was more like backdrops for different scenarios, but I guess there wasn't a lot of places where you were outside of the school. So the graphics are pretty simple, but of course it's going to be simple for a simple game. Moving on to sound, aka music and sound effects and stuff. So the music in this game is stellar. I wouldn't change a single thing. In fact, when they did DDLC Plus, they incorporated new music that was also amazing. So I think they killed it with the music. And then when it comes to sound effects, there wasn't many sound effects, but there was a couple. So like when Siri would fall to the ground after hitting her head, there'd be a slump, or when she got smacked with Natsuki's cookie, it was like there was a smack sound effect. So there's sound effects here and there, but it really added to the story. It made you feel like you were a part of it rather than you were just reading text and that kind of thing. Yeah, that was pretty good, but the main part was the music, and like I said, the music was stellar, especially the song at the end, where she's basically singing to you. That was pretty cool. And then, like I said, once you get into DDLC Plus, you can actually put them in a playlist. So if you wanted to just like chill and relax and listen to the soundtrack, you can. It's that simple. With main DDLC, you cannot do that. That's a specific DDLC Plus thing. If you want the soundtrack and you only have the main game and you don't have DDLC Plus, then you would have to go on YouTube probably and search for that. But yeah, so they did a stellar job with the sound in this game. But moving on to story and characters. Story and characters is honestly probably the best thing this game had going for it, because if it didn't have such a good story and it didn't have such good characters, I don't think this game would have been as popular as it became. So the story is, just to break it down, was like Monica, she's the sort of the showrunner, and once you start the game up, it seems like everything's fine, but as you start to go through the game, even in the very beginning, you start to notice that she's a little bit different than the others, and that first of all, you can't win her over in the Poem Panic game. And second, she says stuff like, oh, don't forget to save your game. It's like she's breaking the fourth wall a little bit, and then obviously in Act 2, the fourth wall is basically busted down with a wrecking ball. But even in the very beginning, you start to feel like something's off, and then eventually she kills everybody, not actually not physically, but like she messes with their files and kills them that way, which leads to tragedy, obviously. But yeah, and then the characters' personalities, like each one of them have personalities. So Natsuki's like the quote-unquote cute and mean one. Yuri's like the quiet, bookish one, like the shy one. Sari's like the obnoxious childhood best friend type thing. And then Monica's like the intelligent, and I would almost say self-centered one. So yeah, all they have personalities, and all their personalities were pretty given to you from the get-go. So and I think that's pretty important, because if you had to like sit for like 2 hours of gameplay just to like figure out what their personality was, it'd be kind of boring. So yeah, I think that all their personalities are really good. And then your character doesn't really. I guess he does say stuff, but you don't see him ever, so you can't really make the connection. So I guess like maybe he's the only character that's not that important. But I mean, the way, because you don't see him, you're meant to perceive yourself as the character, because that's how dating sims work. But obviously DLC is not a dating sim. Yeah, so the story, fabulous. If the story wasn't as good, it wouldn't have been as good of a game. Same with the characters, so did a fabulous job with that. But moving on to replayability. So, if you've been following the review series for a while, you know that I categorize replayability in 3 different ways. So you have limited, where the game doesn't have, like, it's once you play the game once or twice, it's done, and you're not going to find any new content, really. And then there's the middle one, which is like limited. It's like limited, but it's not. It's like in the middle somewhere, where it's like you can play a good amount of times, and then you'll still get some new content. But at the end of the day, it's still like a very linear game, and you're not going to really find too much. And then there's just games like Minecraft, where it's completely replayable, and you can play it till the universe explodes. And I believe, so because I'm lumping DDLC and DDLC Plus in it, for DDLC I would say that's purely linear, that's limited rather, and that once you play it a couple times, you're basically done, because there's only 2 endings. The first ending is the ending you get normally, because you're not going to know how to get this other ending without doing the first one. It's the basic standard ending. You delete Monica, Sarah becomes a new president and all that jazz, and then she deletes everything again. And then the second ending is you save everybody, or like you spend time with everybody, thus saving them, and then everyone's happy, and then Monica destroys the Literature Club, like that kind of stuff. But then that's it. That's really it. I mean, you can get more secret poems. I think there's 16 secret poems, but again, that's all random stuff. But with DDLC Plus, I would almost say that that's more leaning into the medium, or like the middle section, where it's like you could play that for a good while, for I want to say like, I don't know, like at least 10 play sessions just to get everything, because a lot of it takes time to get all the background. You need all the characters' lines, you need to win people over, or like you need to choose certain words in the Poem Panic game. You need to see certain scenes during the game just to get 100%. So you could go for a decent while, but at the end of the road, it's still going to be, once you complete it, it's going to be done. So that's where I would categorize that. Lastly, or not lastly, next up we got personal takes. My personal take is that this game was fabulous, especially when it came out in 2017. I don't know if depends on, I'd have to look up when it came out in 2017, because I'm not fully sure I played it in that year that it came out. But when it started to blow up, that's when I think I found it. And I started to watch people play it, and once I watched people play it, and once I found out it wasn't just dating sim, I'm like, ooh, I should try this. And it was a really good game from the get-go. It's aged really well. As you know, the people that are on the channel know that Monica, actually all 4 of the characters are in the ARG. Whether they be alive or not, they're in the ARG anyway. So you can tell that just from the game itself, it's the story and the characters I'm able to pull from it, and that's why the mod exists. Like, we're also doing the mod. I almost forgot about that. The mod is like taking place at a certain point in time because of the original game that's existed. So it's a lot of it's like comes from that. And if the game like didn't have as good of a story or didn't have as good as characters, the mod wouldn't exist. The series on the channel probably wouldn't have existed. Like, all that stuff wouldn't have happened if it didn't have that kind of stuff. So I think it's an amazing game for its time. It's held up. I don't know if they're done with DDLC. The DDLC Plus had a lot of lore stuff that led to like this weird test program thing that was like V2 or whatever, or VM, Virtual Machine 2. That's what it was. And DDLC's Virtual Machine 1, and they're talking about Virtual Machine 2, which is like a more open game. And so it sounds like it might be in the DDLC universe, but it might not be DDLC. So they might not be done, or they might be, who knows? But
DDLCCU.
No. Yeah. So I think it's a pretty great game. But moving on to Zachary.
All right. So I was trying to think of the word that I was going to say in the original recording, but I couldn't remember it. I finally remembered it. Innovation. Innovation is key when it comes to game creations, because typically a lot of the time, if you just do what a lot of people have been doing most of the time, unless you're Nintendo or big companies, it's not really going to work all that much. But Dan Salvato was able to innovate incredibly well. He was able to take an idea and kind of shift it into basically just the exact opposite. He turned this game from what looked at the surface to be like just a normal dating sim for a bunch of losers in their mom's basement into a psychological experience. It's really cool how he did that, and being able to use files and being able to tamper with them, that's just really cool. I really liked how he did that. I have a lot of respect for Dan Salvato.
Yeah, and the fact that, like, I mentioned this in the original episode, I never got to it in this one, but that I think he was one of the pioneers to start the whole trend of, like, hey, this game is not what it seems on the surface. Because Undertale sort of did that, but Toby straight up told you could spare or kill people. Like, that was kind of given to you just on the page, that thing. There still was elements of, wait a minute, what's going on here? But it wasn't like Undertale's a different game. I'm not comparing it to DLC at all because they're two separate games. But in terms of like the on the surface thing, there wasn't really games that did that. FNAF had its share, like the 1987 kind of broke the fourth wall because it closed your game. But there wasn't some stuff where they were inserting files into your game. And I think there was like a couple here and there. That's why I'm not saying there wasn't any, because I'm sure that existed before. But Dan Salvato and DDLC like kind of pioneered the start of that, because there's a lot of games now. I'm actually looking into a game that we're going to do on the channel sometime. That we actually might have already done this because I don't know when this video comes out. But it's a game that's like it goes hard into like the I'm gonna mess with your computer, because I'm Scared did that. If you remember back to when we played I'm Scared, that was a Spooktober special. It closed the game on you. It put files in your computer. It sent you to YouTube links and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, you had to go to your files in order to even complete some stuff and move on with the game.
Now, what's interesting about I'm Scared is that that game came out before DDLC did. So that was one of the games that did it, but surprisingly, it wasn't as popular. I don't know why. I'm Scared was actually a really good game, and we will review it at one point, even though that was kind of just a one-off game.
Oh yeah.
To be fair, we did do the full game though. But yeah, so like we'll review that at a separate time, but he was really one of the pioneers to start that kind of thing. But we're gonna move on to Isabel. So real quick before she starts though, as I said this in the original and I'll say it here, Isabel went in completely blind to DDLC. I went in, so like I told my story, I watched someone play like the first, I want to say 40 minutes, and then I went to go play it myself. But that was even before the YouTube channel. And then Zach had watched people play it. He knew the endings and stuff, so that's why he wasn't in the series. So we both kind of went in knowing stuff. Isabel went in completely blind. I think she heard of the game at that point, but she like didn't know anything about it. So what's your personal takes?
Yeah. So once we started playing it, I was just expecting it to be like this completely normal story with these 4 high school girls, and we're just some guy trying to get with one of them. But I was really not expecting it to take such a dramatic turn with the story, and I was definitely not expecting the game to mess with your files like that, to personally scare you, not just from what like the creepy stuff going on with the characters, but also with Monica tampering with your own files within the PC. But once we played it, it was still super scary and fantastic at the same time, and that is very nice.
Alright, so moving on to Is It Worth It? So DDLC, the core game, is free, so anytime that a game is free and that's not complete garbage, I'm going to say it's absolutely worth it. DDLC Plus, if you choose to do that, DDLC Plus comes with the soundtrack, like you get it embedded in the game, because technically it's on YouTube, but you're technically not allowed to do that. But Dan Salvato, I will say though, is on the same lines of Toby. That he's like, I don't care, man, just do whatever you want, unless they're like charging people money to listen to it. Then he would have a problem.
Yeah.
But I mean, Toby would have a problem with that too. But like, but he's cool with that. Same with Scott. Like, they're all cool about that. But anyway, point is though that DDLC Plus gives you the soundtrack. It gives you the some side stories that you can't access otherwise, and it gives you a lot more lore for the background of what's going on behind the scenes. But I do believe it's $20, which is not a lot for nowadays because a lot of games are starting to come out with $70 games like Resident Evil. GTA is going to be like $100 probably. Who knows? So yeah, you get the idea. But it's not going to break the bank. It's kind of like Faz. Faz is like 12 to 15. That's not going to break the bank either. And like I said, you get a good value out of it, especially if you get the original game. Because the original game is free and you can install mods with it. So if you want to play our mod when it comes out, I say our mod as if you guys have done anything with it. If you want to play my mod when it comes out, once we're done with it on the channel, then you can do that with the original game. You cannot do that with DDLC Plus. So if you purely just get DDLC Plus, you can't extract the original game to add mods to it. It's just not how that works. So, because then the entire game doesn't know what's going on. So, but you could, once you download the free one, you could install mods into that. And I'm sure other people have made mods. I've actually looked at a couple before, debating whether we should do them on the channel or not. Yeah, so there's all that kind of stuff. So I would say both versions absolutely worth it. And lastly, we got the final rating. My personal rating when I said this in the original episode was it's not perfect. The only 10 I've given out is to Undertale, and I still agree with what I said that back then, even though it was like an hour-long episode. So that's the only game I think is perfect from what we played. There are games that are starting to get really close, and there's games that I'm like, oh, I don't know if I should I don't know, this might infringe on the 10 territory. But DDLC, I can't give it 10 because there would be things I would have changed. There would be things that I'm like, oh no, I think that could have been done better. Just a couple, but not a lot. And because of that, I'm going to give it a solid 9. I think DLC, especially at its time, was peak gaming content at that point. Like Zach said earlier, it really completely flipped the script on dating sims and how the people view dating sims and that kind of thing. Cooking Companions was directly inspired by it, and that was a great game as well. So yeah, there's a lot. It's a solid 9 to me. But Zach, I'm assuming you're going to stick with the original, but tell them why you chose your number.
Yeah, my original number was either between a strong 8 or weak 9, but I'm going to stick with the 9 in my personal opinion because yeah, it does a really good job in a lot of elements, and only just a little bit of tweaking I think just needs a here or there, and a little bit of tightening, a little bit of oil, and it's a smack job right there.
All right, and then Isabel?
Yeah, I would also agree with going with a 9 out of 10.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this review, guys, so I hope this helped you. Also, if you watch the Rocket League one, then you know that there's a custom outro for these now, because I want these to be more professional, because at the end of the day, we're making reviews to help people decide whether they should get the game or not. And game reviewing to me is helpful because when I'm getting a product, whether it be a game or whatever, I always look for reviews and I listen to people's opinions because I value people's opinions, especially gamers. If I'm looking into a game and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I should get this game. Now DDLC's been around for a while, so if you're in the few camp that hasn't played the game, then obviously. But let us know your opinions in the comments. Tell us what you think about it. Tell us what you think about our rating. You can agree, disagree, whatever you want. But yeah, we're just gonna end because there's the custom outro. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and we'll see you guys next time.